Be me. Brazilian, working as a guide in the jungle. I lived in a very tiny village inside the jungle, very near the border with French Guiana. One day I was approached by a team of 3 researchers. They wanted to go into the forest in one of the trails, to catalog some insects. There are many trails inside the forest. This one in particular was very unsettling. In the midst of the forest, there was a region that long ago was considered sacred by some tribes. Another small tribe, not knowing the place was sacred, started to live there. The place was very prosperous, had a lot of animals to hunt, and plants to forage. The other tribes became aware of that, and cursed that tribe. All of them were killed. We guides take these stories very seriously. Haunted or cursed places, even if you don't believe the legends, are places with a lot of dangerous things. Poisonous plants, deadly animals, and old traps, are just some of the things you can find there. I also never been to the far end of the trail, since nobody really goes there. I didn't want to go with them at first, but they offered me a considerable amount of money. I then agreed to go. They slept at the village, and we prepared to go the next day early morning. At dawn, they were at my door calling me. I gathered my stuff. I had an old gun, a machete, and supplies. 2 of them also had a gun. We started our walk through the jungle. The first day was almost uneventful. We did find some markings on the woods, and some tribal ornaments. At the end of the first day, we set up camp. They used a white sheet and a light source to lure in some insects. In no time, the sheet was filled with moths and beetles. We did something to eat, and I sat with them, observing the insects. Sometime later, one big spider appeared near the sheet. It was a very large spider, that descended from the trees. It was almost the size of a hand, was brown, and had no hairs. Everyone stopped to admire it. Even though I have lived some kilometers away, I had never seen such a spider. After a while, it went back to the trees. After that, we went back to sleep. That night, I remember having a weird dream. Something about native houses being on fire. People screaming. The next days nothing really happened. We found more insects at night, and walked during the day. On the 6th day, we woke up early and went ahead on the trail. While we were walking, one of the researchers told us to stop. We stopped and he pointed at a tree. Another one of those spiders was on a tree. This time, this one was larger, a bit larger than a hand. They took some pictures, and we kept going. After a while, a strong odor of rotten flesh filled the air. The researchers stopped, and started looking around for a carcass, saying that it would be important for their study. I helped them, and soon enough, we found a dead tapir. The thing was almost skin and bones. The skin was almost intact, aside for some large holes and rips at the side of it. The researchers bent down near it, and started collecting some larvae that were pouring out from the side. The smell was almost unbearable. We started walking again, finally leaving the stench behind. The trail started to have large stones on the ground, and some arrows at the trees. We then found a big patch of land, with not very tall trees, and spaced out clearings. The trees had a weird shape to them. They didn't notice it, but I found it weird, and asked if we could inspect the trees. Upon inspection, we found that not all of these were really trees, but vines that were climbing up pieces of wood. I recognized the layout of the natives' houses on the ground. We had just reached an old native village. The researchers were very pleased about the whole thing. We started looking around the village, to see what else we could find. Some utensils, old weapons, arrows. After some time taking pictures, one of the researchers who was in the other side of the village called us. When we arrived, he pointed us to the tree line. A huge door-like structure, with red markings and 2 old spears crossed in an X shape. The thing was very deteriorated, and had many parts missing. The door led to what looked like an old trail. One of the guys asked me if we could go explore. I said that we couldn't, since I had never been this far out in the jungle. I have never seen this old village, nor knew how to come back if we went through that trail. Another guy said that if I were to take them through 1 or 2 more days, he would double the payment. I reflected a bit. It was too much money. I accepted. We managed to get around the gate and started walking through the woods. As we were walking, we could smell rotten flesh again. This time the carcass was a few meters ahead from us. A dead jaguar was there, again, only skin and bones, same wounds as the tapir. I told them I didn't know any creature that could do those markings. They collected some samples, and we kept walking, setting camp sometime later. When we woke up the other day, we realized one of the members of the team was missing. His tent at the tree was all torn up, like if a thing just slashed it. His things, such as his gun, also disappeared. At the tree, a spider, much like the ones we had seen before. We theorized that maybe his tent torn up during the night. It was a very generous fall of about 5 meters from the ground. I suggested that 2 of us would go look for him, for maybe something dragged him, or he got disoriented and started walking. One of us would stay in the camp, with a gun, just in case he came back. So me and the other researcher went to look for the guy. Only I had a gun, and he had a machete. As we advanced into the woods while calling for the guy, I noticed some very large spider webs at the trees. The trees also had more of the spiders from before. One of them being as large as 2 hands. We kept walking, and big dense clusters of webs started appearing. The trees were filled with webs, to the point that they looked like they were covered with a white sheet. All of the noises from the jungle stopped, as we entered a place completely full of webs. I told the researcher that I had never seen anything like it. I could see he was scared. I was scared as well. The sky suddenly got dark from the density of the webs. I saw something moving ahead, near a tree. As we approached it, I then froze. Camouflaged near a tree, was a spider. It was as large as a man, had a brown body, and was looking right at us with big black eyes. Its fangs were as large as my hands, and had a strong smell of something rotten. As we saw it, I slowly raised my gun at it. The thing came to us, with a terrifying speed, but I managed to shoot it. The thing shrieked. Me and the dude started to run. As we ran, I could see more spiders of various sizes on the webs. The dude tripped and fell. I turned my back to help him. As I approached him, a big spider, the size of a big dog, looking very like the big one, fell on top of him. I looked at the treetops. Various shadows of huge spiders were on the webs above. The dude screamed as the spider bit him. I heard another spider falling down about 3 meters from me. I couldn't do anything, and I kept running. I ran as fast as I could, and ended up arriving at the camp. When I looked around, the dude was nowhere to be seen. I could smell sulfur from gunpowder. I then heard movement behind me. And so I kept running. I arrived at the old village at dusk. I got a sheet from my backpack, and buried myself under some dead leaves on the ground. The night was scary. At various times I could hear the shrieks of a big spider, and some steps on the ground. At dawn, I got out of my hiding, and most of the old village was now covered in web. I ran again, hearing heavy things falling from the treetops behind me. I finally got some distance from them. From there, it took me almost 10 days to go back home. As I would travel only in the high hours of the day, and had to hunt for food and water. Even when the things calmed down, I was so paranoid that I kept looking behind me. The 3 researchers were never found. And I never came back to that place again.